Fall to Shadow, written by Jac-Ann Marie. Chapter 35, Book 1 in the Ashes of Discord trilogy. An elbow slammed into his stomach, and he jerked awake. He grabbed hold of the arm and flipped the body over him. Raif slammed into the ground and sprawled out as he jerked himself up to stand. Raif groaned and slowly got to his feet. Their eyes met, and they burst into manic laughter, the kind that made no sense and had no reason except to dispel emotional tension. The laughter faded quickly to thick tension again. It had been an entire day since the incident, and a steady storm of pent-up emotions was brewing in Raif. He let the silence hang, not wanting to push the seemingly fragile hold Raif had on his magic. Neither of them was in the mood for chatting much or eating, so they gathered their stuff and headed north. Craggy boulders and cliffs waited around every thick copse of trees, which made for slow progress. The mid-morning was unusually warm as the autumn sun beat down on them. The sun, in combination with the rough terrain, had them sweating, hot, and dirty. When they came to a break in the incline, they stopped to rest. "Can you stop that?" Raif snapped. Jace glanced up. Raif was pointedly looking at the stone in his hand, the same one that was always in his hand. "This? What for?" he asked, confused. "The rock. Your fidgeting with it is putting me on edge. What have you got to be upset about? You are not the victim of the harlot's lies, and you should not feel worried. Not for them, anyway." Raif's voice held so much bitter resentment, he knew that commenting anything on the matter would only make things worse. But he had plenty to worry over, and for once, felt Raif should look beyond his own problems. "I will not stop. I have worries just as much as you. Gods forbid, perhaps even more. I may not have a kingdom on my shoulders, but I have a heart, and it's barely hanging by a fucking thread, Raif." He watched as shock and then rage flickered over Raif's face. "Do not speak to me as if yours is the only heart between the two of us," Raif shouted. His expression softened the moment he finished the words, regret showing for only a brief glimpse before continuing. "You need not worry about Marie. She will return home to us and all will be well." He slid a cloth across his back blade, as if the conversation was over. "Marie is not my only concern, and you can't know she is truly all right, Raif, despite what that creature told you. When has an enemy returned a prisoner of war unscathed, alive? Well, never. Do not make statements to me as if you are addressing the masses in some speech, for I am not a foolish fucking sheep like those that live in the villages." He continued rubbing his thumb over the onyx stone, back and forth, back and forth. "I do not think of you as a sheep. You share much more of a likeness to a Periton, gentle and peaceful. It's a wonder you've made it so far along in your Lakela training, brother." Raif attempted to lighten the mood, but his broken heart was demanding to be addressed. "I long for the days I am allowed to be gentle and peaceful. But these days require more from me than that. You think of yourself as unworthy, or like you are failing?" He met Raif's eyes. They were wide with shock. "Marie told you of this? That I think I'm unworthy?" "No, my sister does not spill your inner thoughts and worries to me, Raif. I have just known you, forever. I know you, and you are not the only Fae who wishes to be more for the ones you love, by the way. Marie's kidnapping was not your fault, but mine. Do not blame yourself for it. The blame is squarely on my shoulders." Raif bowed his head. "God's damn it, not everything is about you and Marie. I know your life revolves around her, but not mine," he yelled. Raif stood up, hand moving absently to his sword's hilt. "What has gotten into you?" Raif demanded, letting his hand slowly fall from the sword. "While I may know you better than anyone, almost anyone, I fear you haven't extended the same courtesy to me, my heart brother. I am grieving." The last word left his mouth like a weight off his chest. He took a steadying breath as he met Raif's wide eyes. It took a moment for Raif to connect the dots. "Because of Sausch? Why?" Raif lowered himself to the ground to sit, waiting for him to explain. What harm can it do now, anyway? It no longer needs to remain a secret. Not Sausch, though I'd like the chance to run through that dunderhead myself. His Lakayla, Lynn. Eyes closed, he waited for Raif's anger over the secret he had kept all these months. When he didn't say anything, he cracked one eye open. Instead of anger, Raif looked confused, which faded to curiosity, and then his face settled into the mask of the Dark Prince, washing away all emotion. What's done is done. You must steel yourself, my brother. It does nothing to lash out at me for your weak heart. You had been involved with Lynn for what? Months? Perhaps a year? It is trivial in the span of our lives. Raif stood and started tightening the laces of his boots as if he meant the conversation to end there again. Love is not weakness, Raif. It is the greatest strength. I am sorry you haven't learned that with your father being so shitty. But you could have learned that from us if you ever pulled your head out of your ass and took a look at what's right in front of you. He grabbed a pine cone and tossed it right at Raif's head. Raif batted the pine cone away angrily. My father is the king, and you will watch your tongue. What's right in front of me is the same path, the only path that I have ever been allowed to follow. Do not speak to me about what is right in front of me. I see it, and it is obligations, not comforts, that I am allowed. Shadows swirled around the tips of Raif's fingers, and he took a long breath before rolling his shoulders and starting up the path once more. Raif, he shouted, I am not a subject to be dismissed. This entire time, I have been grieving, and you haven't noticed a goddamn thing amiss, because you are so caught up in your own shit. You love Marie. I see it. So why are you even messing around with Zabeth? Is getting a woman to bed so important it's worth this foul mood you are in? He had never in his life spoken so harshly to anyone, let alone the prince. The words just flew from his mouth as if of their own volition. Regret slammed into him just as Raif's fist slammed into his face, knocking him to the ground like a sack of potatoes. He stood, and for the briefest moment his rational brain steadied him, but his raw heart demanded satisfaction. He surged forward, tackling Raif to the ground. They exchanged awkward blows to ribs as they wrestled each other for the advantage. They had trained together for too long for either of them to gain much headway. Raif's anger started to slip, and the shadow swirled across his body. Raif grunted and dug his fingers into the ground. He disentangled himself as Raif reined in his magic. The dark magic fought against Raif, flickering and lashing out before finally dissipating. They were both breathless as they flopped onto the ground, bruised and covered in dirt. Marie is forbidden, even to the Dark Prince. Raif's voice was barely above a whisper, and his jaw ticked as if the words tasted bitter in his mouth. So what? He wanted to say something encouraging, but Raif was not him. He had honor. He had obedience. He was more worthy than he was of the crown. Disobeying the king's decree wasn't something Raif would entertain. Raif sighed. Zabeth was a welcome distraction, and now it's over and I just want to get to Marie. I want her with me, us, so let's just go. Raif stood and didn't wait for an answer before starting down the path again, and this time, Jace let him go. He couldn't stop his thoughts from taking on a life of their own in the silence of the day until they made camp. Raif was getting more out of control with every minute that passed. They should be nearing Light Fae territory soon and rescuing Marie. But if Raif was losing control around him, the emotions he felt for Marie would surely overwhelm him. And what of his responsibilities back home? How will the safety of a kingdom balance on shoulders so unstable? Raif would surely lose control when they returned to Brak Kura. He stared into the flames of their campfire as Raif slept, trying to work out what options they had, how they could safely navigate the circumstances they were in.